Hey all, Ron here from Military Images Magazine with a new episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail. Today, we're headed to the second day of the Battle of Gettysburg, where the fighting in the vicinity of the Peach Orchard was a Union artilleryman's nightmare. Advancing Confederates had torn into the poorly positioned Union Third Corps and ripped it to shreds. You students of the Civil War know that the destruction of the Federal line at this critical point uncovered a wide and dangerous gap in their front. Onrushing rebels plunged into the void and drove shattered ranks of Federal infantry back, leaving artillery batteries unsupported and exposed. Third Corps Commander Daniel Sickles, who inadvertently placed his troops in the vulnerable position, was struck in the leg by a cannon shot as he supervised the deteriorating situation from the Trossel farmhouse. He was loaded into an ambulance and hustled off to safer ground. The desperately wounded general lay in the ambulance as it bounced along a road to safety. Along the way, it passed a Union artillery battery headed toward the chaos. This was the 6th Battery of the 1st Maine Light Artillery, 103 men and 6 guns strong. It was also known as Dow's Battery after its chief, First Lieutenant Edwin B. Dow. He was ably assisted by his second in command, William H. Rogers, the subject of this story. He's pictured right here. A prosperous master mariner from the village of Stockton, Second Lieutenant Rogers was just hours away from performing an act of courage that prompted Dow to mention him in the battery's after action reports. Rogers' journey to Gettysburg began 22 years earlier with his birth in 1841 in Eastport, Maine, the youngest son of H.M. Rogers, an extensive landowner and a lumber dealer. His early years were marked by hardship. Young William Rogers' mother died when he was only 3, and his father, suffering financial reverses, died 2 years later. Bereft of parents and a home, the Rogers children were scattered among relatives. Young William was taken in by an aunt in Camden who arranged for him to live in Prospect, now known as Stockton Springs, with a reverend named Jerome Harris. When William was 10, he was adopted by the Honorable Mrs. N.G. Hitchborn, who raised him as a son. Rogers gave these foster parents the deepest filial affection of a warm hearted, generous nature, according to one later writing. Rogers' early ambition was to command a ship, and by 1717, he was at sea, quickly rising to the position of first officer. When President Abraham Lincoln issued his first call for volunteers after Fort Sumter, Rogers happened to be on home between assignments. He immediately resigned his shipboard post and enlisted as a private in Company B of the 2nd Maine Infantry, the first regiment from the state to enter the war. He fought at the First Battle of Bull Run with his comrades and, that winter, transferred to the newly organized 6th Maine Battery, commissioned as junior second lieutenant. From Cedar Mountain to Antietam, Fredericksburg, and beyond, Rogers built a reputation for dependability and courage. However, he had his share of sickness, like many of the men, falling ill with swamp fever after Cedar Mountain, but he returned to duty as the Army of the Potomac advanced toward Antietam. He wrote, "I left the hospital and went to my battery to take command in the advance to Antietam, to which engagement I was obliged to ride in an ambulance nearly all the way." By Gettysburg in July 1863, Rogers had proven himself indispensable to Dow and the men of the 6th Battery. When Lieutenant Colonel Freeman McGilvery organized a desperate stand known as the Plum Run Line, Rogers and his guns were at the center of the fight. Dow recalled that his battery galloped forward, got into position close to the Trossel farmhouse, and went at the rebels. These Confederates under Brigadier General William Barksdale poured bullets into the Union gunners from everywhere, but Dow's men swept them out of the farmhouse area. The battery endured 3 furious charges, holding the line under conditions Dow described as by the whites of their eyes, sir, as they came plunging at us with their bayonets lowered. Dow credited Rogers' coolness and leadership as key to the battery's survival. After the final Confederate assault was repulsed, Rogers ventured out under fire and, with the help of the Garibaldi Guard, the 39th New York Infantry, recaptured four 3-inch rifle guns and two limbers from Watson's 5th U.S. Artillery. We immediately limbered on our caissons and ran to the rear, Dow reported. He officially commended Rogers in his report. I was ably seconded by Lieutenant Rogers, to whom we owe much of our success. Lieutenant Colonel McGilvery later praised Rogers in even stronger terms. Rogers is a born soldier, equal to every emergency, fearless, suggestive, and possessing a wonderful control over men. He has not a superior among our artillery officers. His soldiers follow and stand by him within the very jaws of death. On Little Round Top, his battery stood a solid wall of fire. I put Rogers into the most dangerous positions because I know I can trust him and his men to win against tremendous odds. Rogers continued to serve with distinction through the remainder of the war. He rose to command the 6th Maine Battery with the rank of captain before it mustered out. That was in June of 1865. After the war, Rogers returned to the sea, his first love. He took command of several vessels that carried Old Glory, for which he had so valiantly fought, to all parts of the commercial world. According to a later writing, he remained a shipmaster until ill health forced him ashore. Later, he engaged in the clothing business in New York City. In 1878, he married Miss Eliza Sweening of Brooklyn, who died in 1889. The following years were marked by his own physical decline. In 1893, he suffered a paralytic stroke. By the time of his death in 1904 at the Sailors' Snug Harbor on Staten Island, he had endured more than a decade of illness. The immediate cause of death was an aneurysm. Those who knew him best described Rogers as a brave soldier, a generous friend, and an honest man. An old associate remembered him as a big-hearted, liberal-handed man, one of the most generous I ever knew. Fair to state that Rogers' life, shaped by early loss, forged in war, and marked by courage in battle and in suffering, stands as a remarkable kind of citizen soldier. We have to reflect on the words of Lieutenant Colonel McGilvery at or after Gettysburg. He was a born soldier. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode of Life on the Civil War, a Research Trail.